Happy New Year, everyone. Okay. Okay. Happy New Year. Officially, Happy New Year to everyone. Javier Becerra, Chairman of the Democratic Caucus, joined by several of my colleagues after our meeting. The Vice Chairman, Joe Crowley. We will have also speaking with us Congressman Mike Thompson of the state of California, who has led House Democrats in this effort towards more gun safety and certainly to reduce gun violence. And we thank him for joining us and for being our leader on that issue. We're joined by our colleague, Pete Aguilar, who was not able to join us in December when we first did a press conference dealing with the unfortunate tragedy in San Bernardino, but we're glad he's here. It's unfortunate the reason why we're asking him to be with us today, but we're thankful that Congressman Aguilar has been a real leader in dealing with the tragedy in San Bernardino and working with all the families there in the aftermath. And so, Pete, we thank you. He'll be recognized as well. We're also joined by my colleague from Florida, Castor, who we hope will focus her remarks on this bill we have on the floor this week on the reconciliation vote that really has very little to do with the reconciliation process, which is a technical procedural process here in the House. It has a lot to do with, for the 62nd time, voting to repeal the health security that 18 million Americans have now gotten as a result of the Affordable Care Act. And it has the most to do with undermining health security and health access for women throughout this country. And we're asking our colleague Kathy Castor to focus on that, along with our colleague Mr. Pocan, who will also zero in on the issue of the reconciliation bill. Both he and Ms. Castor serve on the Budget Committee and can tell us about that process, and we're hoping that Mark Pocan and Kathy Castor will focus on that. I will simply say this. Pete asked us to stand for a moment of silence back in December, along with all of our colleagues, as a result of the death of the more than a dozen people in San Bernardino. Not long before that, we had taken a moment of silence in the House for another mass shooting. And not much before that, we had done it again for another group of Americans who had been shot in a mass killing. And before that, whether it was Charleston, whether it was Columbine, whether it was the folks in the state of Connecticut, we've been standing and observing moments of silence in the House of Representatives for several years now. That's about all this House of Representatives and this Congress has done when we find out that there's someone who wishes to terrorize and ultimately kill American citizens with weapons, with guns. We watched yesterday as President Obama stood, I think, strongly, firmly, and I believe proudly to say, if Congress isn't going to do anything, then I will. And I thank President Barack Obama for doing whatever he can, even though it's limited, even though it might only be temporary, to try to help save at least one life. One life. And maybe some folks in this chamber don't believe it's worth saving that one life. But I guarantee if you talk to Pete Aguilar, he'll probably tell you it sure is. And so thank you, President Obama, for moving forward. Maybe now we'll do more than just observing moments of silence in the House of Representatives. Maybe now we'll act. Maybe we'll act only because so many of my colleagues apparently are unhappy with what President Obama is doing. Maybe that'll spur them to do something rather than just complain. And that's what we're hoping. And in terms of the attacks on women's health, they've done it before. They're going to do it again. And we'll do exactly as we've done. We're going to defend the right of every woman to have quality health care services for herself, and for her family. And so with that, let me yield to the Vice Chairman, Mr. Crowley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to be back, and Happy New Year to you all. I've been thinking about my own New Year's resolution, and when it comes to me, I'll let you know. I do think that Mr. Ryan, Speaker Ryan, apparently has found his resolution. That was to shave his beard. quite frankly, now I know why he grew it in the first place, so that he would have a resolution for the new year. Because quite frankly, we're not doing anything different this year. It's still, their agenda is still to attack women's health care. Their agenda is still to take down the Affordable Care Act. So they're not having any real New Year's resolution other than maybe a cutting of a hair or two. The American people expect more from the Republican-led Congress. And they have a responsibility to do something to help the American people move forward. Yet we just see it's more of the same old, same old. I don't think what the president did yesterday was a resolution for the president. But he is resolved to find a solution to gun violence in this country. It's not a New Year's resolution for the president. This is something that he has been working on and trying to cajole the Republicans in the House and the Senate to do something on. And quite frankly, there's been nothing, unfortunately, but silence. And we'll stand for moments of silence when these tragedies occur. But that cannot be the only response from the people's government. We have an obligation to protect the citizens of this country. And I think that's what the president is setting out to do. He is not losing focus. He is focused on all the issues that threaten this country right now. And to use that as some type of an answer or excuse as to not move on reasonable gun control is simply ludicrous. When they had an opportunity to go after closing Mike Thompson's bill, to work with Mike Thompson and the other members of the task force to pass his bill that would reasonably close loopholes that allowed terrorists on the watch list to purchase weapons, they turned their backs on the American people. And I'm so proud of my friend and the work that he has been engaged in as the leader, as the chair of the task force on gun safety here on the House side. Leader Pelosi has appointed that position, and all the members of the task force for their work, for bringing to the floor reasonable legislation to bring reasonable gun control to the United States to help protect the innocents of our country. And without further ado, let me turn the podium over to my good friend, Mike Thompson from California.
Thank you, Joe. It's good to be here today in the shadow of President Obama's executive action yesterday. I can't tell you how proud I am of this president for saying enough is enough and doing everything that he can within the jurisdiction of his office, within the Constitution and the laws of the land, to try and make a dent in gun violence in this country. The president's done what he's. It closes the loopholes that allow criminals, allow domestic abusers, and allow people who are dangerously mentally ill easy access to firearms. It's a bipartisan bill. It's I'm author of that with Peter King from New York, a Republican. There's a number of Republicans who are co-authors of the bill. There's nearly 190 co-authors, and yet their leadership on that side of the aisle refuses to allow it to come up for a vote. If they brought it up for a vote, it would pass. It would put into law the background check provisions that can't be reversed by just the stroke of a pen. It's long overdue. It needs to be brought up for a vote, and we need to do our job.
Crowley for the opportunity to be here. As Chairman Becerra mentioned, I represent the city of San Bernardino, where the tragedy occurred. I was born and raised in San Bernardino, just down the block from the Inland Regional Center on the same street where the mass shooting occurred that claimed 14 lives last month. When I first heard of the attack, I rushed back to my office. We had actually just come back from voting on the measure that Congressman Thompson was mentioning, on voting to open up discussion. And the Republican-led Congress wouldn't even allow us that opportunity to start that discussion. I came back and I saw the horror unfold on television. I received a call from Mike Thompson, giving me his thoughts and concerns as well, and I rushed back to my district. And as I went back, the only thing going through my head was the family members that I have that work for the county of San Bernardino, the friends and loved ones I have who work for the county. And I said what many others before me have said, which is, why is this happening in my district? I joined a list that no member of Congress wants to join. Chattanooga, Aurora, Newtown, Charleston, those are lists that San Bernardino joined, and it's unfortunate. That's the problem, is the list goes on and on. The only action that Congress has taken has been to hold these moments of silence. And as a family member just yesterday said, a family member of one of the victims said, and I'll quote him, "Congress has offered their thoughts and prayers, but thoughts and prayers are cheap when you have the power that they have," meaning us, meaning it is our ability to deal with this issue. We have that capacity. As a father of 2 young boys and the voice in San Bernardino for so many, I can't stand silent. We need to stop bowing our heads, and we need to start raising our voices to call for this change. We owe it to our communities from San Bernardino to Newtown to do something. I'm glad the president has taken this step to address gun violence. And while one single law could not have prevented the horrific acts in San Bernardino, that doesn't justify our refusal to make our community safer. This is a necessary first step. Thank you so much.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here with my Democratic colleagues. And here at the beginning of the new year, Democrats start with a renewed commitment to standing up for America's working families and standing up to the special interests that hold so much sway here in Washington, D.C. In contrast, Republicans in Congress begin the new year with the first vote that is one that attacks women. It attacks women's health care. It's a vote against women's health. And it's a vote, again, to target Planned Parenthood, all rolled into one. Women and family action videos. We have not forgotten that the Republicans in Congress acted in concert with the shady organization that manufactured the videos to attack Planned Parenthood and to bring votes to the floor of the Congress based upon these false and misleading claims. And we have not forgotten the Republicans' long record, long list of assaults on women's health care. They have a pattern of interfering with personal decision-making and women's health. So this reconciliation vote, the first of the year, what it actually will do is take away health services for women, oftentimes the women that need them the most. Family planning, the vitally important health screenings and cancer screenings, contraceptive coverage. That's how they choose to start 2016. Defunding Planned Parenthood would leave millions of American women without the health services that they need. And let me tell you, when you talk to your neighbors back home, moms and dads, parents, families, right now, they're looking for the Congress to provide greater economic and personal security, not less. That's what we need to be focused on in 2016, rather than starting off the year with another attack on women's health.
Thank you, Castor. Mark Pocan.
Well, good morning. I know when Speaker Ryan was sworn in, he said we're going to have a new day in Congress, but so far it really just feels like Groundhog's Day. I don't know if you know the movie from the early 90s. You wake up, I get on the plane, I fly to Washington, D.C., and all of a sudden I'm voting on repealing the Affordable Care Act again for the 62nd time. Doesn't count. I know around 37.
Losing count.
Losing count. I'd say around 37. I think they were serious. But and the 12th time to take away funding for women's health care and Planned Parenthood. 62,000 women in Wisconsin, a state that Paul Ryan and I are from, and 22 clinics across the state of Wisconsin are affected if that were to happen. And it's the reason that Congress has such a low opinion with the public is because the Republican leadership's agenda. Once again, we're not addressing the issues of gun violence that I hear so much from constituents. They say do something instead of what we've been doing. And here we are back again trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act and trying to take away the access to health care for, again, 62,000 women in the state that Paul Ryan and I are from. So I'm hopeful that I will someday get on the plane, come to Washington, D.C. up in Groundhog's Day, not a new day.
With that, we'll take any questions. Yes.
On Puerto Rico, that was an issue that you guys really
Well, that's a great question. It goes to Mr. Pocan's point that here we are, we come to Congress and we're supposed to do things, and it's same old, same old. We vote on the same things that go nowhere, and we get nothing done. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, whether it's women who require decent health care or if it's people who are looking for safety in their neighborhoods, nothing gets done. And in the case of the U.S. citizens in Puerto Rico, nothing's getting done. And there's a real economic crisis that's brewing because Congress is not willing to get its work done. And there's a solution on the table. Bipartisanly, there are people who talk about what we need to do. We all know what we need to do. What we would do in Congress wouldn't cost American taxpayers one single penny, but it would help relieve the economic pressure being felt by U.S. citizens in the island of Puerto Rico. And so it's difficult to understand. Speaker Ryan made some promises. Once again, it's we have to see if they're more than just empty promises. What's worse than an empty promise is a broken empty promise. And so we're hoping that we can get something done, certainly on any number of issues, whether it's women's health, gun safety, but certainly the people of Puerto Rico, the U.S. citizens of Puerto Rico deserve to have some action done by Congress, especially since it won't cost U.S. taxpayers a dime.
Let me just follow up, if I could, on that. And this is an issue that's very close to home to New Yorkers, but really all Americans, quite frankly. And I want to congratulate the governor of Puerto Rico for really succinctly laying out there what the issue is and what the people of Puerto Rico expect from their government. They're being treated, once again, like second-class citizens, as many of the territories feel they're quite often treated as. They are citizens of the United States, and they deserve to be given the opportunity to restructure their debt like we let other entities within the United States do. And so that's what they're looking for. As the chairman said, it will not cost the American taxpayer a single dime. And at the same time, what we'll do is give an opportunity for the people of Puerto Rico to address their issues, their needs, and a very serious fiscal issue that needs to be addressed. But they need to also be a part of that. A major, not a part, the most important position is the people of Puerto Rico and its government to rectify the situation. Mike Thompson is declaring today that he's staying for at least 15 more years. So let's make that clear right now.
I think that's the best answer. We'd prefer to talk about some of the issues that are important to the American people, and all the insider baseball that might go on here in Washington, D.C. has nothing to do with dealing with gun safety, dealing with women's health, dealing with real financial crisis for families in Puerto Rico. So I think
At the top of the party who's in leadership to make those decisions is very important, and he was the trip chair for many years.
I think every single one of us would say that we're sorry to see Steve Israel, Jim McDermott, two great colleagues, New York and state of Washington, both announced that they will be retiring at the end of this year. We certainly look forward to having them replaced with great leaders as well from their respective states. But in terms of their moving on, while we hate to lose them, we know they're going to continue to do some great things for our country. They're great leaders.
Let me comment on that as well, being that Steve is from New York in particular. And Jim, remember the Ways and Means Committee that Mike and Javier and I both, all three of us serve on. Both great contributing members to the House Democratic Caucus. And Steve, both members of the, this is going to be really nerdy now, we're both members of the Battlefield Preservation Caucus. I think there's only two of us, Steve and I. So you were wondering who was on that committee, right? Steve has made tremendous contributions to the leadership of our caucus as the DCCC chair and as the leader of the message team here on the House side, and he will be missed. But I know Steve's going to have apparently more than one more additional career in his life, aside from writing and novels and maybe television and movies. Who knows? The sky's the limit for Steve, whatever he chooses to do, and he will be missed. And but I'll get to see him maybe a little bit more often back home than we do here in Washington.
So you got the answer now. There's only one chairman of that caucus. Yes, sir. By the way, did any of my colleagues make any comment on Steve?
The reaction from the Republicans on a lot of the gun issues as it's come up the past several months has been this Tim Murphy mental health bill. It's been described as a bipartisan bill. Has there been any activity on that bill? Do you see a lane for opportunity to pass something, and where are we?
Let me, Mike, you may want to say something.
Yeah, I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and they have been working on that with Congressman Murphy. Unfortunately, up until the end of the year, there was really no meaningful dialogue on mental health, the Murphy bill. At the end of the session, after we had a markup in subcommittee, we were finally able to flesh out a number of issues. The Democratic alternative has now been introduced. It was introduced in committee as an amendment. It has a much more comprehensive and robust answer to mental health issues in America. But the Murphy bill has momentum. It has bipartisan support, and we're hopeful that we can continue to work together in committee. I thought President Obama's offer yesterday to focus additional resources for mental health is a very important piece of that. Let's just see if our Republican colleagues will be willing to take up that mantle. Up until this point, they've been all talk, no action, and especially when it comes to new resources for local communities.
Money would still be another year away before there's another spending bill. Can you get something happening between now and then?
Let's hope so for the sake of our families back home.
Well, I'll just add that mental health is certainly a big part of not only the gun violence prevention efforts that we're doing, but it's a major issue for our country aside from that. So I applaud the President. He had two provisions in his executive order to deal with mental health. One was the $500 million that he's wants to dedicate to mental health. And the other is the effort to make it easier to get mental health records into the NICS background system. That way, people who are dangerously mentally ill, if they try and buy a gun, they go through a background check, that will be pointed out, and they will be prohibited from buying a gun. Remember, we're looking at stopping 3 different types of people from getting their hands on guns: criminals, domestic abusers, and people who are dangerously mentally ill. The President's proposal takes a real positive step in that direction, and we should embrace it. Sounds like that there's work going on in the Commerce Committee to find some common ground between the Democratic proposal and the Republican proposal. Sounds to me like there might be a deal, and it may have $500 million in that deal, and that would be a good outcome.
Mark, Pete? Maybe we will have a good year. Yes.
Chairman, yesterday Congressman Becerra said that the ICE raids over the weekend were a reminder of a discredited policy. I was wondering if you shared that reaction, and your colleagues from California as well. If you think that small-scale family deportation is a successful deterrent to further illegal immigration.
So this is what happens when you have a broken immigration system. You have families who are torn apart. You have communities that are trying to figure out how to deal with individuals who come into the country, and whether it's the issue of how you care for small children, how you make sure that it's done in a way that is above board. It makes it really difficult when the underlying laws don't work well and the system is therefore very broken. We've known it's been broken, and we've had bipartisan proposals to fix it. But in this Congress, Speaker Ryan has essentially said we're not going to do anything about it, even though we know the system is broken. The President has tried. He's even tried, as he's done with gun safety, to deal with it through whatever executive powers he can, but those are only temporary, and it makes it very difficult. But this is what happens. We're going to continue to see a lot of heartache unless we fix this broken immigration system. And we have a process. What many of us have said to the administration is you have to make sure you're following a process and providing a fair hearing to any, especially children who've come into this country without documents, a fair hearing to make sure that if you are going to deport them, their claim of asylum or for refugee status, if it wasn't legitimate, you're absolutely certain, because we don't want to be returning people to death or other very difficult circumstances. So I think we're going to try to make sure that the administration abides by the laws, even though, again, we've got a system that's broken. It's not the best way to operate. But the best we can do, given the laws and the fact that the President has to enforce the law, is make it clear. We've got to fix the system, change the laws, reform the laws, so we don't have circumstances where we have children who are put in great peril. I don't know if anyone else wishes to. Any final, Mike, and then, oh, let's go to Mike.
Yeah, just following up on that. I mean, these are cases that have been adjudicated, and they have, these are people who have not been deemed to they're not going to be sent back to violent situations according to the administration. Do you have confidence in the system that that is the case?
So that's what, in conversations and communications I've had with the administration, that's what they've related, is that they are focused on going after criminals who are in this country, who don't have a right to be here, and in fact are trying to do us harm. And that's where they're trying to focus all of our resources, or as much of our resources as possible, to go after the bad elements. We don't need to have folks who are trying to sell drugs. We don't need to have people who are looking to do us harm because they want to terrorize our citizens in this country. And so that's where they're focusing their limited resources. But they also have the case of individuals who have gone through the process, including having here individuals, especially if they're children, probably have little understanding of what the process is. Did they get a fair hearing? Did they have an opportunity to have an advocate help them in preparation of their case? It's not easy to demonstrate that you are fleeing death. That concern I have expressed to the administration. But again, if we don't deal with a broken system, we're going to continue to have these cases. And the president, who swears during his inauguration to uphold the laws of this country, has to try to uphold a broken set of laws as best he can. And that's why he's tried through his executive actions to make the system work better. So it's a tough thing, and we're hoping what we can do is actually get Congress to get off its duff and get something done on yet another issue. I mean, Puerto Rico, women's health, gun safety, immigration. It's a new year. Let's get some things done. Yeah, and we'll close with this.
Do you all have any reaction to North Korea's alleged Castor benchmark?
Let me ask my colleagues if they want to react. Mark? No? Okay. I will simply say this. It's a dangerous world, and we have to be on our toes at all times. And I thank the President of the United States for keeping us on our toes, but not jumping before we know the facts, so that we're not putting American law. The unpredictable nature of North Korea, we have to be on our toes. I appreciate and I thank the President for always being on his toes and keeping America on its toes, so we keep Americans safe. Was there a final comment? Otherwise, yes.
Forgive me if we went over this before I arrived, but has leadership given Democrats any kind of assurance that there will be a meaningful hearing on considering that proposal of Puerto Rico?
So has Republican leadership in the House given hearing and hopefully then legislation? I know there were promises made. I know there were communications. Can I tell you they're meaningful, or that we expect the promise to be fulfilled? Stay tuned. And that's a really awkward and difficult message to send to the U.S. citizens in Puerto Rico. Stay tuned. They've been working hard to try to get this done. Congress seems to be saying on every important issue, stay tuned. I think the President yesterday made it clear he's not going to just stay tuned. He's going to take action. And as I said, he's on our toes. We're on our toes, ready to take action. And I hope that Congress realizes we got some muscle. Let's get some things done. With that, we'll close. I want to thank my colleagues for having joined us. Happy New Year once again.